Hearing no further discussion or comment, the chair lays before the committee House Resolution number 139, a resolution to expel Representative Todd Forster from the 82nd House District of the state of Michigan. I'll accept a motion to report the resolution.
So moved.
So moved by Representative Heising. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
To report House Resolution 139, Chairman McBroom.
Yes.
Representative Heising.
Yes.
Representative Verheulen.
Yes.
Representative LaFontaine.
Yes.
Representative Churkin.
Pass.
Representative Liberati.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 4 aye votes and 2 passes.
What's up, guys? We will come back to that clip in a moment. That was from 2015 when Democrats were, once again, trying to control the timing of a Republican scandal to benefit an election, which we will talk about in a few minutes. But first, welcome everybody to the Rescue Michigan live stream. And look at this gorgeous new backdrop behind me, guys. How is that, huh? It's still missing the Michigan part of the logo. That's still on order. That should be coming in before next week. But
you're looking good.
Thank you, Scott. To our viewers on Rumble, who often get neglected because your comments don't show up in the regular comments feed in StreamYard. I often don't see your comments and I miss them during the stream. But last week's stream, we had a comment from Charlotte Cosmic in the Rumble stream. I didn't see it until after the end of the episode. And she said that the portrait that was behind me of John Taylor Gatto looks like George Soros and always creeps her out. I was like, I know it's not George Soros. In fact, for those who don't know, because I've only occasionally mentioned this, but that portrait behind me for the past 296 streams, guys, we're coming on episode 300, is John Taylor Gatto, who is like one of the founders of the modern homeschooling movement. Amazing guy. But if you don't know who that is, people just were confused. So time for a change. Got new logo. People on Rumble, I am seeing your comments, sometimes somewhat belatedly, but welcome to the stream, everybody. We've got a heck of a program tonight. So,
But Adam, didn't you make that backdrop?
I did.
Yes, you did. That was very talented.
Thank
Man of
you.
many talents.
Well, it's just paint and some paperwork and stuff. But yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. Anyway, Scott McMahan joins us tonight because we've got some bombshell stories going on, and the biggest one, and this is, I don't know how entirely due to your reporting this was, but I suspect it was a part of it, was the story of the RNC coup that got the kibosh put on it by the Trump campaign. Mm-hmm. And you've been banging this alarm, you've been sounding this alarm, banging the drum for a very long time on these people that are self-professed Trump supporters that really ain't. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them have gone through to become national delegates. So with that, Scott, I've got plenty of things pulled up. In fact, I guess I'll pull up your story first on your Substack. But why don't you set the table for us and talk about what's been going on in Arizona with this Shelby Bush?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and share the story. I really am the only one that's reported on this until about 2 or 3 days ago. And I had a source, and part of that's because I'm the only one that would actually believe it, because I've been looking at it, and I've developed a lot of sources at all levels of the Arizona Republican Party, and increasingly at the RNC. And I got some calls on June 4th about a meeting that happened the night before on June 3rd. It was a training meeting for national delegates and alternates. And I talked to somebody for about an hour about what had happened at that meeting. And she was very disturbed. They were talking, Shelby Bush, who's the chair of the delegation. She runs We the People Arizona Alliance PAC, which has received about $700,000 from the America Project, which is run by Mike Flynn and Patrick Byrne, from Patrick Byrne directly, and also from Mike Lindell. And that's just in the last couple of years. So there's definitely a financial tie there with Mike Flynn. And she's one of the ringleaders in the state of kind of the, like Mike Lavity kind of type, you know,
Yeah.
the Christina Caramo cult kind of type. And they use the same exact language. They profess to be Christian nationalists. They use the Bible as a weapon. You know, it's all the same exact stuff that we've seen here. And they've really taken over the state party. So about 90% of the delegates are part of that group and to the national convention. So at this training meeting that they had, Shelby Bush was talking about conspiring with 7 other states to suspend the rules to the convention. I had pictures of slides from that were given to me that showed how to suspend the rules, how to place into nomination a new candidate. and they were saying that they were doing this to protect Trump, or in case something happened, so that, you know, if Trump was in jail or somebody, if the establishment were to change the rules so that Trump couldn't be nominated, then, you know, this is why they were doing this. So yeah, there's that slide. That gentleman standing there, he is Joe Neglia, who's he's the MCRC, Maricopa County Republican Committee parliamentarian, and he is a complete rules for thee but not for me kind of guy. He advocates openly for breaking the rules when it meets their agenda, and then he uses the rules as a weapon against the sane people, the people that call the establishment.
So what they're showing here, just to be clear for the audience, because you went through that pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it takes a majority to suspend the rules, but it takes 8 state delegations to get to where they can open debate on that and force motions and questions on this.
That's right.
So hypothetically, if 8 states, Arizona, Michigan, and 6 others get together, it instantly throws the convention to chaos. Now, they might need a majority to do something truly bizarre, like to nominate Mike Flynn for president or for vice president, which they can't actually do. And I mentioned this in my email today. Something similar happened in Michigan in 2022. Tudor Dixon won the nomination for governor on a vote by the people in the primary election. She picked Shane Hernandez to be her running mate. And there was an organized effort at the state convention to veto that choice of hers, effectively kneecapping her, debilitating her campaign, and instead nominate Ralph Rebant to be the lieutenant governor, which, even if Ralph Rebant was qualified, even if Ralph Rebant was a good candidate, and even if Shane Hernandez wasn't a good candidate, it would have been devastating to Tudor Dixon's campaign, because the first thing after being the nominee is you get kneecapped by the GOP, quote unquote, grassroots of the convention. It was a disaster, and they didn't ultimately succeed, but the disruptions that happened at that convention from start to finish were agonizingly painful. From the moment the convention opened, when the disruptors, objected to the waiving of the reading of the call to convention. So instantaneously, the convention starts and they're causing chaos. That's what would have happened at the national convention had they succeeded. With 8 states, they could have already started getting things off track.
Adam, it gets even crazier. So they were actually talking about, Shelby Bush mentioned at that meeting that that part of what they were conspiring with other states was to co-create a blank template for changing the rules. So this blank rule change template, and they were talking with these other delegations that are all majority crazies, and they were talking about signing this template, having their delegation sign and vote on basically a blank rule change template. So they were voting for something that they were being told this was going to protect Trump, but they were signing something that would be used. Like there's really no explanation for suspending the rules other than to unbind the delegates so that they're not bound to vote for Trump. I mean, that's really the only, there's no good purpose. There's no purpose that would actually protect Trump to suspend the rules. Every outcome that you could game out, it would hurt Trump. And that's what, you know, and so these people were so deceived, the followers, that they thought, this sounds like a good idea. Let's sign this blank check. Let the leaders of these delegations, who are really close, they're very close to Flynn. And they're like the Labadis of these other states, and give them a blank check to vote on behalf of the entire delegation to suspend the rules and change the rules in completely in ways that were completely unknown to the members of that delegation. It is absolutely insane what they were talking about. And when I first heard it from this first person, I thought, like, this just can't even be. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
It can't even be. And then I heard from somebody in another part of the state whose best friend was there. And this was somebody who's kind of on the fence. We know a lot of people that they're kind of, they try to bridge the gap. They want to be in the middle of the two groups. They don't, and being at that meeting was what persuaded her that these people are evil. And so she said confirmed everything that I had heard. And then I heard it from a third source. And that's when I decided I need to go public with it. I put together one story because I wanted to protect my sources. I had spoken with people in other states, but I hadn't heard this level of detail in other states. So I just kind of made it vague in general, like I'm not committing to Arizona. It was soon after that I was actually called by the Trump team. And I was on the phone with the Trump team. I told them what I'd seen. I don't think that they believed me at first. The next day they called me back and they said, we see this as the biggest threat to the convention, and we're taking this extremely seriously. I told them that this was linked directly to Mike Flynn. And they said, well, what's the end game? And I said, well, certainly it's to create chaos. And they're talking about making policy changes. They were talking at that meeting about doing a 1 day, 1 vote resolution at the national convention. I mean, that's not what the convention's for. It's just so ridiculous. And so
you're right too. I think a big part of this also is just that they're just plain straight up crazy. Like when we start that convention where they objected to the waiving of the reading of the call to convention. Right. A lot of it just is, I want to show I can be relevant, and one of the things they kept saying too, because we heard this when they were trying to defend themselves, when they were trying to kneecap Tudor and overrule Shane Hernandez, was, we just want to have a say in the process, and we just want to show that the system works and blah, which is all complete bullshit. But they might actually generally believe it, some of them. But
And they're crazy.
Saying,
they're crazy, but then their insanity is being weaponized by people who want to derail the process and hurt Trump. And I don't think there's any really chance that Trump's going to be not nominated as president of the RNC. But could these factions of crazy people come in, stir things up, cause trouble? Sow seeds of division, give the media a lot of headlines about how the party's not united behind Trump. That's the sort of damage that they could reasonably do. But, now that it's smoked out, it's less of a possibility that it'll happen.
Yeah, I think one thing is that they're expecting at least the possibility that Trump will not be able to be, like, there's going to be some kind of maneuver where, based on his conviction, the Democrats were going to move to block him from being on the ballot or something. In fact, this was actually also from Scott. This is this post of Mike Flynn putting his name in the race. I'm General Mike Flynn. I'm 65 years young. I'm in the U.S. and I'm damn sure not voting for Joe Biden this November. Tee-hee. Hashtag Flynn movie. And Scott, just so people can see this as well, this story did get picked up by the Washington Post. This is their article about it. Trump campaign seeks to head off convention revolt from its right flank. And this is not nearly as in-depth as your story is, but they do have some information in here about this.
Well, and what's absolutely remarkable about this story is, I've been researching Flynn now for months, and this is the first time that I have seen a mainstream media story depict Flynn as Trump's enemy. In every other story, and there's so many on Flynn, they try to unite Flynn and Trump, and is very useful to them and to Flynn's operation, because Flynn says some really deliberately stupid, inflammatory, and terrible stuff, and does a lot of stupid stuff. And so the media wants that to reflect on Trump and to tarnish Trump. And so this here showing that this was led by Shelby Bush, that this did happen, and that, because of course the disruptor people, they all claim that it didn't happen. you know, that they love Trump. We're 1,000% for Trump. But they said, we just wanted to inform everybody of their rights. At the national convention, you don't have rights. It's a privilege. You know,
Yeah.
people are just, they're bonkers. But yeah, so I think this story was absolutely huge. I think that this is actually the beginning of the end for Trump. My tweet about this has been seen almost 25,000 times.
Wow.
So I was expecting, they call them Flintards, the people that are like part of the Flynn cult that just get crazy angry. I was expecting the Flintards to just come out in full force attacking me. And there was almost none of that. It was pretty remarkable. Almost all of the posts, I mean, with just a couple exceptions, are along the lines of, I've always had my doubts and suspicions about Flynn. It's so good to see this. Thank you for the work that you're doing to expose this. And, you know, and other people that have been researching this too have come out in support of it. And so it's been a really good thing.
Yeah, Flynn's a big part of it. I don't know if he's the only element of it, but I think that clearly that was what they were settling on. In fact, this is the tweet from Patrick Byrne, who back in the day, if you go to our video archives at Rescue Michigan, you can find us reviewing his election fraud movie and how completely full of garbage it is. But this is Burns tweet. And here's where he's saying that we want to do is to veto Trump's pick for vice president, who we don't know who it will be. Apparently we'll find out on Thursday. That's the rumor, the buzz now, which if it's someone like Kristi Noem, who it won't be, you know, that almost kind of makes sense. But if it's someone like J.D. Vance, then this looking eerily like the Michigan 2022 state convention, vetoing a serious, proven, solid conservative to nominate an unproven wacko instead. Like, so here's what Patrick Byrne said. And going back really to this article too, I just noticed this comment, and this is just kind of encapsulates this, what the disruptors have been doing all over the country. So here's the Illinois Republican chairman stepping down, saying, I've had to spend far too much time dealing with intra-party power struggles and local intra-party animosities. We have Republicans who would rather fight other Republicans than engage in the harder work of defeating incumbent Democrats by convincing swing voters to vote Republican. And that's it in a nutshell, guys. That's been my year and a half with the GOP in my county, and I'm sure it's that way everywhere else, except where it's even worse.
Yeah. Well, and that's in Maricopa County. So Shelby Bush is the second vice chair, or the first vice chair of Maricopa County. She really wears the pants. Craig Berland is the chair, but he's a Yutz. So just in the last 2 weeks, they held in the largest district within Maricopa County. They censured the five state legislators, 3 from the House and 2 from the Senate, who voted to kill the 1864 abortion law. Now, that was going to be that 1864 abortion law that banned abortion almost altogether was going to be the primary get out the vote driver for Democrats. And when those 5 Republicans broke with the rest of the Freedom Caucus and the hardline Republicans in the House and Senate, that cut the legs out from the Democrats. I mean, that was the best thing that they could have done for the Republican Party for November. And so they censured these 5 incumbents that are all in purple districts, by the way. And then they sent out an email in Maricopa County that I wasn't supposed to get, but because they only sent it to their supporters, but they got one of their email addresses wrong, and it accidentally went to a friend of mine. And so he sent it to me. They were saying that Joe Negley, a parliamentarian, he said that all they needed on their executive committee for the county was 18 votes to go through with an endorsement convention to endorse absolute nutcases. And so they're endorsing, they want to have this, and they said that they could do it. He actually said that they could do it without even letting all of the whole body know. Because they had enough support and all they needed was the 18 votes, so they could do it over Zoom or something without anybody else knowing about it and endorse crazy candidates. And this is basically what this was a plan to hand the state legislature, which is red now, to hand it to the Democrats. And it's sick. I mean, it is absolutely sick. Yeah.
All right. I actually someone want to get to the next story. However, there's still more to this. So what happened. So the next thing was there was this contest. And this is also in your article on Substack, biggertruth.substack.com.
Yep.
This challenge was filed, and there it is here from an individual who apparently is, I think, maybe one of the alternates, or maybe not an alternate, but someone who was not elected. And this was the challenge that they made to Shelby Bush and these other 5 members of the Arizona delegation.
That's right.
And effectively what they're saying, this is the language here, all persons have to affirm their willingness to comply with Arizona state law and vote for the winner of Arizona's presidential preference election as on the first ballot. And that's not what happened. So essentially they're challenging, they're saying their loyalty pledge was fraudulent. They don't plan to be loyal. They plan to break the rules, and presumably there's some kind of evidence. Is that basically the gist of it there?
Yeah. That what they were doing was working in opposition to the interests of the Republican Party. And so basically on those grounds, they were being removed. So they recruited 6 alternates who would have, and this was the Trump team that recruited them. And they would have replaced Shelby Bush, Joe Neglia, this guy, Michael Schaefer, who's part of their group. And he actually, just to show how stupid these people are, he actually asked at that training meeting if he could bring a gun to the convention. Wanted to bring his firearm to the convention.
And wait, in all fairness, I was because I'm an alternate to the convention, and so we've had calls, and there was a person from Michigan that also asked that question on that call.
Oh wow!
So that's not the guy, but it's a question that is being asked. So there's a lot of stupid people out there. I don't even know who.
Some people like to always exercise their Second Amendment rights. But let's not get ahead of that story.
Yeah.
We'll get there in a minute here.
But let me, hey, 1 second. Let me interject real quick. To play devil's advocate for a second, the Patrick Byrne tweet where he said, criticized Trump's potential VP pick and the endorsements that Trump has made. You look at, if it's JD Vance, that would be great. But who are the other candidates for vice president?
Yeah.
The top candidates that we're hearing. Senator Marco Rubio, neocon. Doug Burgum, governor of North Dakota, who no one had really even heard of beyond a month ago. Now he's everywhere. Now we're supposed to love him. He's a great guy. Here he is. You go back and look a couple of years back, a picture of him kissing ass of Bill Gates in North Dakota. And then you look at what he said. What Burns said about the endorsements. You've seen terrible endorsement after terrible endorsement. You've seen the endorsement of the worst neocon perhaps ever to serve in Congress here for U.S. Senate in Mike Rogers. You saw Trump endorse the opponent of the leader of the House Freedom Caucus, who had a 99% conservative rating, in Bob Good, to endorse John McGuire, who was, anyone in Virginia will tell you, was at best a very weak conservative in the Senate, and it supported all kinds of bad things in the state Senate of Virginia. So while Byrne, I don't support, the tone and tenor of everything that Byrne and Flynn are doing in terms of the messaging they're putting out, we can't gloss over the mistakes that Trump's making just because there are crazy people on the other side making those points.
Well, I would say this, and I've been as critical of Mike Rogers as anybody on this stream, even including someone that works for his opponent. There is an issue here of what role you're in. And it's one thing for someone who is in an outside organization like the Coalition to Rescue Michigan to criticize a campaign decision. When I put on my Washington Republican Party hat, I don't criticize my local state rep, even though on my website I will, because of what our voting record is. I would argue when you go to the national convention, you have an obligation to support the nominee. Just as if you are a state chair, a county chair, you have an obligation as part of the job you've agreed to serve in, that you are supporting the nominee, because that job description is win for Republicans. And like I said, I will criticize Trump's VP pick if he picks Doug Burgum or Kristi Noem or Tim Scott or whoever. But I would never do such a thing at the national convention, because all you're doing is helping Trump lose at that point. And you could even argue you're helping Trump lose doing that locally. But the point being, I don't have an obligation. I have to care about Michigan. I have to care about who our U.S. Senate nominee will be. But when you're at the RNC as a delegate for what is presumptively Trump's convention, I think at that point you got to say, you know what? If Trump picks the dog catcher to be VP, that's his choice, and I'm not going to second guess him. That would be my argument.
But devil's advocate there, as somebody that's working for an opponent to a Trump pick, when I go to convention, what then? I don't say anything about Sandy because he picked Mike Rogers.
Well, I don't know. What would happen at the national convention that involves the U.S. Senate race in Michigan anyway? Though?
No, that's true. But I'm just saying that's kind of the tenor of what I'm being faced with in Michigan, of between the RNC and the Trump team and the Rogers team, of Amber, just drop it because Trump chose his person. We're going to get rid of primaries because the primaries decided. It is a slippery slope.
Well,
It
to
is.
that
It really is.
And
Trump is not a Michigander, and Trump. Like I said, if I'm wearing my RNC hat, which I'm not going to because I'm not going to the RNC, but that's also why I didn't run for an RNC, because I'm not that kind of type. And this goes to Melanie Greenfield's comment: would you boo Trump at a Michigan rally? As a certain state lawmaker who spent some time behind bars this week did. No, if I was mad at Trump, I wouldn't go to a Trump rally. That's what to do,
But one final point I'd like to make is that, we can point to all the crazy people in the grassroots who are making all these strategic errors and making us look so bad. But we got to be careful not to march in lockstep with what the RNC is doing and with what Trump is doing. If he is making mistakes, we have to call that out. And if the RNC, I know that they got rid of Ronna McDaniel, great step in the right direction, but we can't take it for granted that all the bad people who were messing up are automatically out and it's completely better overnight. We have to be willing to call out groups like that, groups like the RNC, and hold them accountable, not just march in lockstep with them, but do so in a way that is intelligently done and on issues that are important and matter, not weird, this weird, we're going to throw out all the rules and do all this crazy stuff type of thing that's going on in Arizona. So it's kind of like there's like a balance between we can't get dragged into this factionalism of you're on one side or the other, and then end up supporting Trump rubber being Kevin McCarthy's picks for endorsements, because that's not good. And it's not just Bob Good in Virginia. It's happening all over, where Trump is coming in, putting his thumb on the scale in these different races, and the establishment guy is winning as a result. And that's it has to do with who he's listening to. He's listening to Kevin McCarthy, disgraced former speaker. Susan Wiles is another person, but he's listening to Kevin McCarthy. He's listening to Senator Daines, who's the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. So these people who have been in power for a long time, shown their true colors, are not for the people, but they're in Trump's ear, and it's having a very bad effect.
Right.
Yeah.
And Steve Daines is running and is trying to get people elected to the Senate who will vote for him for Senate Majority Leader. We see this all the time, of people stacking the deck for their own benefit. And it's just, it's sick.
Yep.
I'd like to interject just a little bit. There's a something that I think a lot of people don't understand is how actually unified the RNC and the Trump team are right now. Chris LaCivita is his official title is he's senior political consultant, but he's really the campaign manager for Trump. I mean, he's leading the Trump team, the Trump campaign, and he's also the executive director for the RNC. Michael Whatley is completely all in on Trump, and he's working directly, obviously, with Chris LaCivita, but he's also working directly with Trump. And we got Laura Trump as the co-chair. The leadership of the RNC, and this isn't the 150 voting members of the RNC. This is the leadership of the RNC, is really in lockstep with the Trump campaign, and they're working together. And their objective is to form a big tent. And it's just like Trump says. He says we need to be too big to rig. And the only way to do that, especially in states like Michigan, Arizona, and so many states, where there are more independents than there are Republicans or Democrats, is to really be center right. And so, and often the center right looks like establishment, looks like rhinos, whatever. But we need the independent vote, and that doesn't mean that we stray from being conservative. It doesn't. And I don't see any indication that they're really violating conservative values. I think every time I listen to Trump, I think he is staying true as a conservative, but he really is center right. I mean, when I see him the last 9 months, especially, he has been he's been a moderate, and I think that is something that's going to it shows in the polls. The success of what they're doing is really in the polls.
He
And
was always a moderate.
right.
It's one thing. It's one thing to be successful in the polls, and is that because he's becoming more moderate, or is it because he's going up against a mush-brained, vegetable? That's the question. And if he is becoming more moderate, and he's going to put in those moderate policies when he's president, and more policies that are more in line with what Kevin McCarthy would want, is that something that is going to be worth fighting for? That's my question.
All right, hold on. I got to read a couple of chats real quick. First, I want to go back to this one just because there's a follow-on from Rumble where Irish Meow says, "And would you stick your tongue out at him?" And then also Mark Ashley Price says, "I was not a fan of Mike Pence, but I still supported him as VP because I wanted Trump as president. Although, look how that turned out at the end with Pence stabbing Trump in the back." And that I think is an issue. I mean, the other thing too is Trump didn't back what's the guy's name, McGuire in Virginia over Bob Good because he wanted to be center right. He backed him because he had a personal axe to grind with Bob Good. He didn't back Mike Rogers over Cindy Pencil because he thought Pencil was an extreme conservative versus and that what's her face, what's her name? Help me out. The other
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell. Yeah, Sherry O'Donnell. Oh, actually, she is far right, but he didn't back Rogers for that reason. He backed Rogers because Rogers has connections to the NRSC, and that's it. And he completely disregarded, the fact that Rogers has an atrocious record on some things that bear on Trump personally, in particular the surveillance state and the FBI. But anyway, we should move on from the story.
One more thing I'll add is La Savita, before he became Trump's top guy, was the head of the NRSC for many years, where he was Mitch McConnell's top guy. So again, I'm not doubting that a guy like that is competent in what he does as an operative. That's why he's been around for so many decades. But are these people going to have a bad impact on Trump enacting his MAGA agenda? Are they going to steer him more moderate? Is that going to be good to get the actual MAGA agenda implemented in the long run? I have my doubts of that.
Anyway, I missed my segue because it was really from this we should have jumped over. Because this, of course, is a reference to a certain state representative who booed Trump at his own rally and is no longer invited to any further Trump rallies. And that is State Representative Neil Friske, who has gotten himself in a heap of trouble this week in a story that is a developing story. And we have a number of news articles about this. I will pull up this one only because it was the first one I had seen of Friske arrested on undisclosed charge, which we now know has not yet been filed after police get report of man with gun. So here is the story. Other mainstream stories are kind of similar to this one, although there was a counterpoint from one Gateway pundit, which we shall cover in detail because it's very interesting all by itself. But this is the gist of it here, folks. And this Friske was arrested early Thursday morning, 2:30-ish, 2:45 a.m. Dispatched to the 2100 block and Forest Road in Lansing, where public records show Friske owns a condominium. And they arrested him on suspicion of what appeared to be 3 felonies: assault, sexual assault, and assault with a firearm. So this was the original story, and says, well, actually, let's get to this. This is the Friske campaign statement, which they released while he was still in lockup. The Friske campaign published a statement on its Facebook page responding to the arrest and the suggestion that a firearm was involved. As many of us know, Rep. Friske is always exercising his Second Amendment right. We ask for everyone for prayers and to stay tuned for updates directly from this campaign or Representative Friske himself. Thank you for the outpouring of concern and unwavering support we have received this morning. Clearly, Friske is over the target in his race, which is a clear suggestion. And I think they said it flat out in their statement that this must be a conspiracy to support his opponent and to harm him. And there is now a quote from his opponent. We'll get to that in a moment, but I don't know. There are clearly some things we need to talk about, including when I get to the Gateway Pundits article. But that was kind of the top level thing, which was that he somehow had this interaction with this lady. In fact, let's just go to this counterpoint here, because the Gateway Pundit has a remarkable claim about the mass media's account on this, and here's what they say. The headline is MSM defamed MAGA Michigan State rep. Media caught lying about 3 a.m. stripper shootout. No shots fired. Legislator robbed. Story by Jim Hobbs, I believe the founder and editor-in-chief of Gateway Pundit. Or Hope finally made a comeback. Neil Friske is one of the most conservative pro-Trump members of the Michigan House of Representatives, and Thursday night was arrested for alleged assault in the state capitol, Lansing. Immediately, the accusation was salacious. The mainstream media claimed that Rep. Friske had fired gunshots at a stripper shortly before 3 a.m. This story didn't. And in fact, I didn't see any stories that said that. They seem to say that there was a possible shot fired. This story here did not say anything that the shots were fired, but Gateway Pundit says everyone reported that shots were fired. And this is what the media pushed through its disinformation networks while chasing her down the street. But of course, none of that is true. Okay, well, what is the truth? Friske has told several sources the real story about what happened. Interesting, because these people are now at least witnesses to what Friske told them. The media refuses to ask those people for information. How would they know who they are? These people probably went to Gateway Pundit to tell their side of the story. How would the other people know who they are? But they relied on anonymous sources who are most likely Friske's political opponents in Lansing. How would they know?
Isn't this story relying on anonymous sources?
Isn't that it? Yeah, it's doing the exact thing.
They actually name any sources?
Yeah, they're relying on anonymous sources. Here's the anonymous sources that we're not going to disclose. We know who they are, but we're not going to tell you who they are. Here's what they say. Friske is being prosecuted in the same county where criminal charges are proceeding against the 2020 Trump electors for false and made-up charges, which is, I mean, first off, irrelevant, but also, I believe those false electors are being charged by the Attorney General. I could be wrong about that. I mean, the venue might be in Ingham County, but I believe it's separate prosecuting offices. Anyway, here's the truth about the accusations against Friske. Amazing how flatly they state this. The truth, the undeniable truth. Friske was being robbed by a young woman who demanded money to leave his condo. I have some questions about this. What is this young woman? How did she get into his condo in the first place? Which, other reports are reporting, there's a woman involved, worked at the strip club Deja Vu in Lansing. The young woman who was possibly maybe a stripper, maybe a hooker on the side, possibly. Who is it you pay to leave your house? Does anybody on the panel, anyone in the chat know? When do you pay somebody to leave your house? Friske was just innocently paying someone to leave his house because she was just robbing him. She was just robbing him by demanding money. That's how robberies usually go. They break into your house and they demand money from you. And she became irate when he did not just simply give it to her and threatened to harm him. At one point, picking up a pair of scissors and trying to stab at and kill him while rummaging around looking for things to steal. Almost as if she really thought he owed her money for something. And then she called the police and falsely said that Friske had shot her, falsely saying, again, the truth and falsity of what she claimed. She told the police at the time on the 911 call. We weren't there, and the Gateway Pundit wasn't there, but they know that she was falsely saying that he was shooting Matt. I don't know. You guys ever had a gun pointed at you? You might panic. You might panic when someone points a gun at you. You might just scream and yell on the phone, he's shooting at me. Maybe they haven't actually shot you to death yet, but maybe you're in fear they might. And you might just say, he's shooting at me. because they're pointing a gun at you. Maybe his finger was on the trigger. I don't know. I wasn't there. Anyway, the woman left with a laptop, a briefcase, and thousands of dollars in cash that she then left with. Well, thank you, Gateway Pundit, for clearing that up, because I hadn't read in any of the mainstream media sources that there was a suitcase with thousands of dollars in cash in it, which is a little weird. I mean, some people might keep thousands of dollars in cash in their homes, but Lansing's not Neil Friske's home, is it? He has a home up north where constituents live, doesn't he? So why would Neil Friske have a briefcase with thousands of dollars in cash in it? I don't know. I'm sure this story makes complete sense. Friske was arrested and has been unable to make any public statements so far. This was published mid-Friday, and that might have still been true. He has now been out for 48 hours. I have not seen any further statements from him, which is smart, by the way. I don't know why his campaign put out a statement while he was still behind bars. Because he was in jail, he couldn't push back against the massive lying campaign by far-left Michigan reporters. His phone, car, and driver's license were all taken from him, which does happen when you're under arrest. And then they would have been given back to him when he was released, which is interesting because he still hasn't been charged. Today, the Ingham County prosecutors announced they are seeking 3 warrants related to Friske, which is weird because the prosecutors don't seek warrants. Cops do. Felony sexual assault, felony weapons offenses. Prosecutors just charge you when they're ready to. A judge has not signed off on the warrants yet. Again, this makes no sense whatsoever because prosecutors don't seek warrants, cops do. And judges don't sign off on arrest warrants. Well, they can, but they don't need to when a prosecutor just brings charges. All 3 accusations are completely and totally false, according to insiders close to Friske. Well, they would know. These insiders. Because Friske was not alone that night with this woman who may or may not, certainly was not a stripper or a hooker. They were all there with him. They were all with him in Lansing. And they know that didn't happen because these insiders, were there at the scene. And so they know there were no assaults and there was no weapons offense, guys. Okay? So Friske was released with no bond money required, which is what you'd expect because there haven't been any charges filed yet. Pending investigation, in scare quotes, which law enforcement experts claim is a strong... And who are these law enforcement experts? Who are these experts? They claim that when someone is released with no bond money required, pending an investigation, it's a strong indication that law enforcement knows that these charges are politically motivated. Really? Is that usually what it means when people are released? That the charges are politically motivated? The media keeps repeating this bogus, obviously untrue story. Obviously, it's totally normal for Neil Friske to have a briefcase with thousands of dollars in cash in it. It's obviously totally normal that a young woman was in his apartment demanding his money for some reason, and he didn't give it to her for some reason. So she grabbed his briefcase full of thousands of dollars that was somehow just laying around. Because, when you have a briefcase of thousands of dollars, you leave it laying around in Lansing. And the media just keeps reporting these ridiculous lies. Now, I didn't see, we can find, there's more articles. Here's an article in the Daily Mail. And they didn't say any of these things. They did say he was arrested after chasing an adult dancer on a road while waving a gun at 2:45 a.m. Well, gee. That does actually make sense. That kind of makes a lot of sense, guys. Isn't it weird the story makes more sense than the Gateway Pundits' take on this? In fact, if you think about it, let's see. You go to a club, a strip club, where a woman might work there, and maybe, stop me if this sounds crazy to you guys, sometimes the ladies at the strip clubs try to seduce the guys there to get money from them. Sometimes they realize they can even get more money if they go home with them. And here's a crazy thing. Now, I learned this on TV, so it might be wrong, but I think there's things you're not supposed to say out loud in case the cops are listening. Like, you don't say, hey, can I buy some methamphetamine from you? Like 50 grams. You don't say things. You don't say, can I take you home for sex, please? And I'll pay you for it. $200. Because, you're not supposed to say things out loud. So there's this kind of assumption, when you take a stripper home from the titty bar, the assumption is there will be a relief followed by a compensation. Right? Is that crazy? Is that crazy?
Can we discuss now, or are you going to keep talking?
Well, the story goes on, but we can stop. We can stop here. There's more. There's plenty more. But
That was a lot of Adam. So
Okay.
let's talk now.
All right. What do you guys think? I'm surprised that she was a lady.
I'd love to hear Shane first.
All right.
Because I know Shane's going to be a different opinion.
Well, I mean, we can jump to conclusions all day long about what may or may not have happened to Representative Friske. But there's no charges thus far, and we'll see how it all turns out. Does seem like I agree that a lot in the Gateway Pundit story is just trying to fight back against what's going on in the mainstream media. It's kind of like fighting hearsay with hearsay. I know what Mears said initially to make the to put the story out there was, sources have told us this was a stripper and she worked at the VU. So it did rely on a lot of anonymous stuff, a lot of stuff said by anonymous sources to get this sort of story rolling, and then it become a media sensation. So I think that, we should kind of take a wait and see attitude until any sort of charges are filed and we can know exactly what was what actually happened, rather than what we all really know right now is that there was some sort of confrontation and that Neil was arrested and charged with 3 felonies. So we'll see how it all turns out.
Not charged yet. And yes, to be clear, I want to cover my bases here. We are not making assumptions about what happened. We are looking at the information as presented in these stories and using our thinking cap to determine what is the most likely thing that probably happened. There will be a wait and Stephen Goethal, wait and see. Thank you.
I agree. I totally agree. I think being charged in the media is half the problem in America. And so I don't think calling for Neil's resignation right now before any charges and all the facts are out is quite accurate. I'm not a huge fan of Neil's, but I also I tend to think that fire by the media is the problem in America. So the Gateway Pundit story.
They did this.
We'll come back to the Gateway Pundit story because I want to. You mentioned Merce or Shane did, and Dan Lawless says we're using our thinking caps, not our jump to conclusion mats. That is correct. Now we also had a comment, and I'm going to get to more of your chats in a second, guys, because there's been several that have been very
hilarious.
Marie Lee says 3 a.m. Doubtfully was sober. She can get intoxicated, such privilege, getting released before seeing a judge. That I don't think he was. This is weird because I've never heard of someone taking a stripper home dead clean sober.
Supposedly Neil doesn't drink. So
if he was drunk, he would not have been released without charges. I'm pretty confident in that. So going back to the Gateway Pundit story, and here's where, again, clearly the media got everything wrong because even though the media never accused him of being drunk, Friske is widely known in Lansing to never drink alcohol and is known as a soft-spoken, pleasant, and upstanding legislator. Well, that settles that. Character, perfect. The idea he would be drunkenly paying a hooker at 3 a.m. and then shooting her in the street is completely out of character. I mean, all the time we hear stories like, I never thought that guy would have done something like this, But, yes, the drunkenness, again, only because the cops released him without charges. Because it sounds like a vehicle may have been involved somewhere here. But, hey, who knows?
I feel like this was all on foot. Like, I don't know where did this... That's the mystery. Is he driving, shooting a gun out the window? I just don't know.
Gateway Pundit says, here are the left-wing fake disinformation outlets quietly changing their story. I haven't seen anything in the Free Press or MLive to change their story or any of these publications. I did not see them quietly change their story any which way, but the damage has been done. The narrative has been set. Friske unable to offer any other side of the story because he was being held without bail for 24 hours, has been unable to say anything while the media spun these lies against him. The lies start with the unreliable and dishonest MERS News, which is a capital-focused blog. A blog. Isn't Gateway Pundit a blog? Is that a bad word? Also, by the way, a Capitol-focused blog whose audience is almost exclusively legislators, that is probably a little bit exaggerated. There's those who don't know, Merce News and also Gongwer are Capitol newsletters that focus exclusively on Lansing politics, and they are very, very expensive. They're not like the Detroit News. They're like $1,000 a month to subscribe to, and their audience is the political class. But they're not just lawmakers. In fact, lawmakers get a free edition of, I think, one of them. I think Gongwer used to get both of them for free. But someone's paying their bills. Lobbyists, corporate interests, the political class. And as such, they have a reputation to maintain of not being partisan. Because if they are partisan, they lose half their audience. And because lobbyists don't want bad information with spin on it. I mean, yes, there's a certain amount of spin you get because they are, political class leans to the left. But as publications go, they tend to really try to be rigorous because their audience is very choosy and they pay a lot of money for information. So here's their wildly inaccurate reporting here. Friske chased adult dancer, allegedly chased an adult dancer, works for Deja Vu in Lansing prior to his arrest this morning. Multiple sources tell Merce. So they say, multiple sources tell us. The first member also had a gun in his possession at the time. Exact charges are pending. Additional details still being gathered. Still haven't been charged. Arrested for a felony level offense. Officers confirmed that officers were dispatched, and possible shots were fired. Wow, that's the fake news, guys. That's the fake news. Possible shots fired. My God, those dirty, rotten liars.
Yeah, the problem though is that it's possible. People who peer in at mirrors can see, oh, it's possible, allegedly, but then when it's seized upon by different outlets and different media outlets, that sort of stuff is forgotten about. It's put in different national news agencies like it's fact, and that's how these smears can get going, even if they turn out to be untrue. The worst one I've ever remember seeing was back in 2017 with Roy Moore in Alabama, just totally made up stories, laundered through a similar process, and that ended up with the Democrat eventually winning the election there, and the Republicans establishment went along with it. So this is something that we could be seeing here. Now, obviously, he's picked up at 3 a.m. 3 charges are pending, and he was in jail for a few days. It's not good news for the representative, but let's see how it all plays out. That's basically how I see it, is that, this who knows exactly what happened. Multiple sources told mirrors. Could have that been people who don't like him in Lansing? I'm sure a lot of people don't like him in Lansing because he votes against all the special interest bills. So who are those multiple sources? We don't know. Could be people with axes to grind against him.
Were the cops in on it, though? Was a stripper in on it? I mean, here's the thing about the Roy Moore comparison, and I'm sure everyone's going to say that same thing or something similar. The Moore story was someone said this happened to me 30 years ago, no evidence, no record, and same thing with with Stormy Daniels and with what's her face in New York. Trump raped me 30 years ago. I never told anybody about it. I have no evidence. There's no police report. No one prosecuted him. There's no records of anything. That's not quite the same as 911 call, dispatcher sent, probable cause determined at the scene for an arrest, referred to the prosecutor. I mean, this is admittedly, it's already absentee ballot season. I know there's a primary election, but there's sooner or later, the truth's going to come out. And I'm thinking probably sooner, because there is a police report. They can't sit on it forever. They might say pending an investigation. But at some point, if it's not like in a week or so, they're going to say, yeah, this was a false arrest. There's no evidence. There's no corroboration. But there's a lot of reasons to think that there might be something to this, because otherwise the conspiracy theory is cops were sent. The dispatcher call was fake. In fact, we have audio of the dispatcher. Let me go to this real quick. Here we have it.
3 on 36, 3 on 37, Circle Office Complaint Information for Command 2508 Windbreak Lane, 2508 Windbreak Lane. Caller says there's a male with a gun threatening the shooter and that he tried to rape her. Command, you clear.
I don't think that's fake. Then there was this.
Ford Explorer to a Cornelius Wolfram Friske.
And then there's this.
Good.
You run the Cornelius that was born in 1961 and see if you have the valid CPL.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe that these calls were faked. It's hard to believe that. And by the way, how does any of this happen if Friske has not taken a lady home at 2:45 in the morning on a Wednesday night when they have session the next day?
Yeah, single unarmed women do not break and enter into some stranger's house. Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, probably not even in Lansing. Yeah. Thomas Richard says, I thought Friske didn't shrink either, but then I heard from somebody and he claims that, but look, I'm not going to repeat hearsay on the stream, guys. I have, Maggie says waiting for DNA results. That's another possibility. Anyway, I want to come back to that cold open clip. I didn't play the whole thing, but that's another possibility. And again, guys, this is a developing story. I'm not trying to be authoritative here. We're looking at the things presented to us, the information, and coming up with hypotheses. Okay. Now, one hypothesis is why was Friske released without charges? Because one option with the Friske people want to just believe is, well, clearly this is all complete BS, and they don't have anything to get him on. Which is weird because oftentimes they'll charge you with something even if they're wrong. If the goal of the cops and the prosecutor is to get Friske to lose the election, they could charge him, and even if he wins his case and is acquitted or whatever, the damage is still done, like what's happening to Trump. The other possibility is someone in Lansing says, dot every I, or dot every T, dot every I, cross all your T's, get all of our ducks in a row. Another possibility is Hooker doesn't want to talk. That's a possibility. For some reason, you never know. And then there's also the question of timing. Because, and going back to that clip we had, that was from 2015. This was a story. This was the big scandal of the year 9 years ago. Cindy Gamera and Todd Corser, big conservative Republicans, were having an affair and lying about it, and they got caught. They thought the rules didn't apply to them, and they thought they were slick, and they weren't. And when this all came out in the recordings, the Democrats wanted to drag this whole affair out as long as humanly possible. And the Republicans wanted to get it over with as fast as possible. That's why that clip we played, that was the committee to evict Cindy and Todd. And there's 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats on this committee because the Republicans were in charge. And to Patty's question at the beginning, that's what Heisey was voting yes on. Heisey was one of the 4 Republicans on that committee. It was Ed McBroom, Kurt Heisey, Andrea LaFontaine, and Rob Verheulen, who were one of the committee's Republicans. And they were all voting yes to recommend Todd and Cindy be expelled. And the Democrats voted pass. I was trying to find more footage. I actually got to watch that firsthand front row seat because I worked for Gary Glenn at the time. And the Democrats were whining and complaining. The 2 Democrats, one was Frank Liberati, who owns Liberati's Deli. The other was John Churkin, who was a cop. And this was back in the day when Democrats allowed cops to serve in the legislature. And so he was kind of Republicans on some law enforcement related stuff. That's why they put him on that committee, was because they wanted him to look at it with a cop's attitude about this. But Churkin was not a cop that day. He was a partisan. And he was following his orders. And he was whining and complaining. And why are we rushing this? We have to find more information out. And so the Democrats refused to vote to move it forward, the expulsion recommendation. And then they had a censure resolution. Democrats voted yes on that. Or one of them did. Liberati passed. Liberati's not a very sharp guy. But they wanted to make this happen. As the problem was, it was the summer. It was September 2015. Election was a full year away. The Democrats wanted that story to be played out for months and months and months. So they wanted to drag it out. And Republicans, nope. Get it over with. Well, Lansing is controlled by Democrats. The prosecutor's a Democrat. They know the legislators. They want this story to drag on as long as they can. So why charge them now? Let's have fun. Let's have fun all summer long. That's my theory. Could be wrong. We'll see when they charge him, but that's just my theory, guys. All right, guys. I've been filibustering so much my throat is drying out. So let's go to you. What do you guys make of my theory? And folks in the chat too.
I think that you talk about not jumping to conclusions, but the Gateway Pundit is pure propaganda. It is pure propaganda. And I mean, that piece right there, this is like exhibit A. I mean, there is absolutely zero evidence in that piece. It's just believe us because I know you want to believe us because you don't want your man, Neil Friske to be wrong. And that's all it is. It's just, pure propaganda. They are jumping to conclusions into an extreme.
It's narrative driven.
Oh, Michael Farage, I saw he went out and said, "There's no charges. He's innocent." Like that is just ridiculous. And that's just as ridiculous as Christina Caramo claiming starting on January 7th that her removal was illegal and illegitimate. And so I think that what the case that you put out there, Adam, I mean, there is no way that she broke into his house to rob him like that. And even the Gateway Pundit article doesn't suggest that. Even this straight up propaganda piece doesn't even suggest that. So, I mean, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. She was brought into that house. Now, so maybe one possibility that I've considered is maybe he was set up by somebody like Mike Labadie and Robert Owens. Maybe, he had Dakota. I don't know if Dakota Sawyer's still on his staff, but maybe he ran afoul of them somehow. I'm open to that possibility. In fact, I would love to talk to Neil Friske. I'm just going to put that out there. If I'm wrong about anything, I will absolutely correct it. Neil, I'd love to talk to you and get your side of the story for real, and see whatever evidence you have about that. I'm open to the possibility even that Robert Owens and Mike Labadie somehow drugged you and set the whole thing up, and you weren't even aware. You woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and I'm open to that possibility. That's the only other possibility that to me makes any sense. So, it's either that or you're guilty of sin as far as I'm just looking at what I see. So, and I'm willing to be wrong. I'm all for, waiting and seeing what happens. But I also think that, we have a responsibility to examine the evidence for ourselves in every situation. And I think you just did a good job of that.
Yeah. John C. King says, it sounds like Lawford, you don't really believe Democrats will be involved in any of that, do you? This goes to, I think, what Randy Guppy says here. If this was set up by police that have charged him with something, the truth lays somewhere in between on this. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is obviously the Democrats have a motivation to want to get everybody they can, but you can't just make this stuff up whole cloth. And also, by the way, sometimes we do get caught doing bad things, and that's the best outcome for them because then they can use it. Then they can really drive it home. I mean, this is what I find so amazing is the Gateway Pundit, based on this, what they say, people close to Friske came to us and told us that this is what, according to Friske, was what really happened. And they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. He was just being robbed by someone who refused to leave his condo, found a briefcase full of money, and ran off with it. Okay, yeah, that's what they think is the plausible story.
Did the Gateway Pundit ever print anything even remotely honest and accurate about Christina Caramo? Ever?
Not about Christina. Well, I mean, I don't know. Back in the day, possibly.
Well,
but, it's like everybody else. They get involved. They get socially, emotionally involved, and they just want to go with it.
Right. And so they're going to go and they're going to parrot this, but they would never actually do. And I know for a fact, like the reporting I did on Labadie, that was sent to them. And they said, no, we're not going to go there. We don't want to do that. We don't want to touch it. This is who they are. Anybody that takes them seriously,
yeah. Well, let's tell you what, we've been beating up on the Christina types, and let's be real, the Gateway Pundit is a Christina type here. However, there is a side B to this. So I want to pick on some of the establishment types that might be watching now, because here's a question for you guys. And this is a question put to you by none other than the Gateway Pundit. That actually reminds us of something. What's going on is that the House Republican leadership, led by Rhino Matt Hall, has a common interest with the far left, purging conservatives from the legislature. So trying to win just one more seat to get a majority. Rhino Matt Hall has been busy recruiting primary challengers. Okay, that's a little bit unfair. However, Matt Hall does, in fact, have a bit of a personal history himself. And a lot of these Lansing establishment types know it. And if he's going to be the speaker, if they're in the majority, what's going to happen when that shoe drops? Because the Cindy and Gim and Todd thing is pretty bad. This Neil Friske thing is pretty bad. Everyone knows about Matt Hall. And again, what people have been saying is Democrats saving it for the right time. Well, the right time's probably around election season, guys. Probably later this year when that shoe drops. And some of the stuff has come out. I mean, and to be fair, Gateway Pundit did cover that. I mean, this is pretty bad stuff when he was telling his girlfriend, I care more about gambling than I do about you. Kind of implies a gambling addiction. You probably don't want a gambling addict to be your House Speaker or your majority leader. Probably don't want your caucus's reputation staked on that. So if you think Friske is so bad, and you should probably, how can you excuse what Matt Hall's been up to?
And I'd like to add that I think it comes down to, Matt Hall serves a special interest. He does the bidding of the lobbyists in Lansing. So he gets a free pass, just like Lee Chatfield got a free pass for so many years. Everyone knew of something going on there with Lee and murmured about it, but everyone looked the other way until it got so out of bounds, so crazy with Lee going overboard that they finally had to prosecute him. But ultimately, I think it's the people who serve the Lansing establishment getting a pass, whereas Neil Friske, who voted against the Lansing establishment, 98% conservative voting record, he's thrown under the bus immediately the first chance they get before all the facts can be heard. Stripper, that was only according to anonymous sources given to Mears. So I think we're jumping to a lot of conclusions here. Like Dan Lawless said, he says thinking caps, not jumping to conclusions. I agree. Let's not jump to any conclusions, and let's see how this all plays out. And hopefully it plays out good for Friske, because if he loses, I'm not convinced that the guy who's primary challenging him will be any sort of a strong Republican.
Oh no! In fact, I want, and I will touch on that too. Let me go to that, because I did see there was a quote from this guy in the Detroit News article. Let me go back to that one again. This was not originally in the article, but it has been added to it. And there's this comment from his opponent, who says, we haven't even talked about Friske's comments on Twitter yet, but they do have a quote from the opponent somewhere here. Where did it go? Yeah, here we go. Fairbairn, this is a primary opponent, in his statement said Friske is innocent and presumed innocent until proven guilty. True. But add that the lawmaker has an abysmal and immoral voting record. No, he doesn't. He's a great one, in my humble opinion. And then this is his spin on it. He says he voted against protecting spouses from marital rape. This is not even true. Voted against making child marriage illegal. Voted against tax cuts for veterans. And just this past week, he voted against making it illegal to create AI, deep fake pornography, using the likeness of our daughters and wives. Neil deserves his time in court, and the people of Seventh District deserve better than Neil. Again, first of all, an oversimplification for sure on the voting record, which is mostly just, I don't want more regulation and big government on a lot of these things, and the government intruding into our private lives. But actually, that deep fake thing, I think is a very complicated philosophical policy question. I mean, we have this AI generated image we used for our thumbnail, which is actually pretty amazing, the job the AI did here, right? I mean, I think it's funny that the AI generated these. I'm trying to make, I don't know if I can make this not full screen. I probably can't, but I'll bring us back on in a second here. But look at, you can see it's, all I did was, here's Neil. What I did is I said, take this photo of Neil Friske and make it a caricature with him holding a gun. Bam! They just gave me that. And somehow they even, they have no way of knowing, because I didn't tell them who this person was. But for those who don't know, Neil Friske's father was a Nazi. He served in World War II under Hitler within Luftwaffe. Somehow they give this guy like Hitler hair. You can tell the guy gets stuff wrong. Like his eyes are different colors and different shapes. It's a little bit bizarre, but like they give him Hitler hair. So AI is amazing stuff, guys. But that's a real okay. So do I have a right to that likeness of him? That's an interesting question. because you don't have a right to a photograph of you. Like if I take a photo of somebody, they can't say that's my likeness. You can't use it. I mean, these are complicated moral questions, but the legislature is just like porno of my wife bad, and they're reducing seriously complicated moral questions, policy questions, probably with unintended consequences to he's bad, vote no. I mean, this guy sounds like he's a douchebag. This guy primarying him from the left.
And also, you see what's happening, with everything that's always piecemeal. It's always step by step. So we'll start regulating AI images with something that most people would strongly agree on. AI generated porno of people is bad. That'll be the first step. Then it'll be, we're gonna AI depictions of anyone in a certain light against their will, even if they're memes or their political speech. Those become banned next. So it could conceivably open Pandora's box toward have some really bad impacts of controlling AI and stopping the people from using AI for political speech or for memes or for comedy or for other reasons that should be protected under the First Amendment. And this is what we always heard when Ron Paul was in office. He voted against this bill, the Save the Children Act, 10,000 pages of whatever is in it and does one good thing for children. He's such a monster. So this is the same tactics we've seen over and over again, is that these bills are huge. They have provisions that could have unforeseen consequences. And generally speaking, with only rare exceptions, if you're voting no on them all, you're doing the right thing. You're putting the brakes on this system. You're putting the brakes on government intruding into our lives. And very, very, very infrequently is more government regulation the solution to any of our problems.
Yeah. Mindy Teet says, and AI's fingers on the trigger. Sigh. Well, Mindy, I don't know that Neil Frische's got better trigger discipline. I would hope so, but what do I know? And by the way, guys, look, I'm not being up on Neil Friske just because his family murdered some of my family. I'm an adult. I understand he's not responsible for what his father was in a long time ago. It's nothing to do with any of that stuff. I'm just calling balls and strikes as I see him. Anyway, this is Friske's. This is actually Friske's.
That was
post.
funny. That was a good one, Adam.
This is a metaphoric visual of why I vote the way I do in Lansing. I'm not afraid to cave to the pressure of special interest. I'm not afraid of the false accusations like Friske is for AI porn when a bill denies the people of their rights to private defense. This is not a very compelling image, but okay, we'll take it. Although it's a bit weird that this was posted at 3:26 a.m. on the night of Friske's arrest.
It was posted while he was being processed, apparently.
So it wasn't posted by Friske himself, but that's still weird because that means his staff was up at 3:30 in the morning posting these things. That's a little odd. I mean, I know lawmakers often abuse their staff and often make them work late hours, but this is a little bit ridiculous, guys. A little bit ridiculous. So anyway, so there you go. Now, I don't think the AI porn legislation is why they're coming after Friske. But anyway, John C. King says, try making it a person of color. I don't have to, at least not this time. Jeff Fuss says, what adult male has scissors in their possession? Jeff, I've got scissors on my desk right here. I used them the other day to make that sign behind me. People have scissors on their desk. There's nothing odd about that. Ron Picard says the Gateway Pundit is the right-wing version of MSM. They don't have dozens of media outlets parroting the same sounds, but it doesn't matter. Stupid, just keep repeating it. I mean, look, the lesson there, guys, is nobody is immune from editorial bias and from being driven by narrative. That's just the way that is. It really takes conscious effort to be impartial. I got to read some Rumble chats.
Yeah, I'll give Gateway Pundit a lot of credit for a lot of different stories they've amplified, including the Detroit leaks. They were the ones who really went and reported extensively on what was going on with the poll workers being trained to disenfranchise the rights of poll challengers. They amplified that story and did a great deal of reporting on that. The Biden ballot dumps, a lot of election fraud related stuff. They've done very good reporting on. The Lucas Gerhard case, they amplified that. They got that out to a huge millions of people. So they do a lot of great work. Same for InfoWars, but agreed that it is there's definitely an editorial bias, strong editorial bias on their content in favor of generally a good cause, but that might make some of their stuff more opinion based rather than fact based.
I mean, the problem is it hurts because at the end of and you're right, they did and I will say, I mean, on the election fraud stuff, they did great work, and they also did bad work. I mean, they did interview me and you and did stories about us. They also did a lot of, I thought, careless reporting on the vote hacking stuff. On the Lucas Garrett thing, they're undoubtedly, unquestionably 110% in the right, and helped him raise support for his legal defense, which is huge, and that can never be taken away from them. But all the more reason why it's, I mean, because the fact is, look, sooner or later, guys, the truth will come out. And here's the thing. I expect someone's going to go to Gateway Pundit and say, those guys at Rescue Michigan are a bunch of traitors, and they hate you, and they're all rhinos and liars. And they're gonna watch this stream, and I'll bet you they will never retract the story. Never. So that to me is where the issue is you've got to go where the truth takes you. And it makes your side look bad because then other people afford me stuff from GP, and I'm like, and I've gotten stuff from people from GP. I'm like, I can't report on this because GP is not reliable. And if I see it corroborated, then maybe I'll use it. And sometimes our editorial stuff is nice, but more often than not, it's like, damaging because they're sloppy. And to what someone was saying earlier about, and I think it's to what you were saying, Shane, about how the media is 10-1 against us. Yeah, we have a bigger burden than they do. They lie and get away with it. We lie, we don't get away with it. Sucks. Life ain't fair. I mean, it's just the way it is.
I would
be rigorous.
Another thing that the Gateway Pundit in particular really engages in consistently is emotional manipulation. And we see the left doing that too. But I think that if we value freedom, if we're conservative, we actually value freedom. We need to avoid anyone who is trying to emotionally manipulate us into believing anything, and that's what the Gateway Pundit does. You can't scroll through their thing without being emotionally manipulated, or at least with them trying to.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest, Scott, I was thinking that you were being driven by narrative with this Flynn stuff for a long time. Lo and behold, and that's in the Washington Post. Yeah, they're trying to get Flynn in as VP or something. So you're onto something.
It's just the beginning. I don't know. I'm working on a book. There's so much that I've got 13 different operations that he's been engaged in since he was Obama's DIA director, that the purpose of which, clearly, just by looking at what he's done, is to destroy the conservative populist movement from within.
Yep. All right, I got to read some chats on Rumble. Snowrunner says, no charges filed, mail-in ballots are coming out. Friske is a conservative on the legislature and is a threat to Democrats. Fairburn says he will work with the Democrats. Fairburn is a rhino that this went on, and then he calls me stupid. His father was drafted in the German army just because he was political party. Not just not mean anything. Many Christians were forced to go into the army regardless. Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I'm bringing it up, but I don't hold against him that hey guys, sometimes we joke here because we have to. All right. Anyway, I think we talked about the no charges thing yet. We'll see what they do. It's me again. Sorry, it says I thought I had trouble with the right number of fingers. Yeah, there's definitely some AI still makes a lot of mistakes, but they're gonna make less and less. And pretty soon it's already getting scary. Also says at this point, anyone the media goes after gets my support. I wish it were that simple. It's me again, Sai. But the thing is, they know that. That's why it's so easy to say. That's why it's so easy to just infiltrate the GOP and just start screaming and yelling about rhinos in the media, and people you must be on the right side. It's so easy to do false flags that way. The truth is more complicated. It's not a black and white world, guys. KLS85 says Cindy Gamert was my rep. If an affair was meant you were expelled today, would we have enough left for a quorum in the House or the Senate? The expulsion was mostly because Cindy was Tea Party. Well, for those who don't recall the details of that story, what happened was
we don't have time for that. That's okay.
Okay, there was more than an affair. There was an affair. There was a cover-up. They were using staff to lie about it on taxpayer time. That was a little bit more of what there was there. And you might say that's a flimsy pretext, but unfortunately, there are certain things that are bright lines in the legislature. One of them is using state resources, taxpayer resources for campaign-related things. You tell your staff, go home and start some rumors and lies about me on the internet, that's a real problem, and they can't ignore that. By the way, in that video we saw, that short clip at the beginning, that guy who was the committee clerk, Doug Simon, not a normal committee clerk. I believe, I know certainly later that guy was in charge of the House Business Office. He was there for legal reasons, as was the other guy in the clip that didn't say anything. Hassan was House Counsel. There's a reason those people were there. Marta Mary says, the first article I read said there was a disturbance outside his home and he went to check it out. I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see. All right. Do we have any more jokes or things we should read? Thomas Richard says, I confirm Friske drives a Ford Explorer. Well, the cops did too, so we know that anyway.
So there was a car involved?
Yeah. Hold on.
One of those calls mentioned a Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
Ford Explorer to a Cornelius Wolfram Friske.
Who knows? That might just be identifying a car in a driveway, though. That's not clear.
There's a lot of question marks, but yeah, no, it's not. None of this is good. You never want to see a representative in this position. It just stinks again for liberty and the Republican Party in Michigan, and it makes us all look bad. So it all sucks.
But not to belabor this comparison even further. But Cindy and Todd had a tremendous gift to be in the legislature and be one of 90,000 people serving their constituents in that district to be able to change history. And they threw it away, having an affair, lying about it, covering it up. And, when you're a lawmaker, it's like, wow, I have a responsibility. I can change the country. You would think, and also possibly thinking, I'm in a position of power that people competed for. And I won that competition. And someone might try to get me. There's a lot of scrutiny on me because I'm a public official now. I'm a state lawmaker. There's a whole Lansing press corps just dedicated to finding out what I'm thinking on every single bill, every single day. There's this guy in Milan, Adam DeAngeli, writing down every vote I take, making a scorecard, mailing on to his members. By the way, candidates, get your scorecard in this week. Got 1 week left. People care about what I do, and I can change history. I should really straighten up and fly right. And all my personal vices might have to take a break for a while. Just saying.
Everybody has their demons, but yeah, no, it all sucks.
The bottom line, though, is that if you're a conservative up there in Lansing, you're doing the right thing, you're voting the right way, then you're not going to be given the same leeway as the people who do the bidding of the elites and the special interests and the lobbyists. So you're going to be held to a different standard. It's an unfair system. But if you're going to be willing to put yourself through that and be a state rep and run for office, you have to realize the stakes of the game and not fall, victim to, your personal failings. If you're putting yourself in that position, you have to have that higher standard because of the nature of the beast that we're dealing with.
Yep. Speak Against I says, I don't care what consenting adults do. I don't either. It sounds like some things that happened that night were not consensual. Sailor Sam, 2,500 on Rumble, says, time to move on to something else. I agree. We've been talking about this for a long time. It's a long stream, guys. Hour and a half. And I have a couple other things to talk about. So let's get to those, and then we'll wrap it up.
I might have to call it a night because my life's crazy. So it was wonderful, gentlemen. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks for coming on, Amber. Good to see you again, too. Thanks for joining her. Always. What else happened? One more. Let's go this way. And one more epilogue to that story. The Mackinac County Republican Party voted to give Neil Friske $2,000 in response to that article, in response to this incident, which even if he was completely innocent would be improper,
right?
Because your party's not supposed to weigh in on primaries.
And yeah, not only that, but it happened just hours after he got out of jail. Like they didn't have any information at all.
Wow. Talk about recklessly blowing your donor's money, and talk about being narrative driven too.
Yeah,
he must be innocent. How do we know? Because he must be. He's one of the good guys. Okay, the Robert Owens stuff. Hoekstra is the thief. We got to talk about this some other time. That's too long. Too long a topic for tonight. Shane, maybe we'll come back this week and talk about a lot of things, because there's a lot of things from his movie. We touched on them during the earlier stuff, but there's been more about that. Kalamazoo case, too much to talk about. We'll have to come back midweek, I think, to do that. Thursday. Okay, here's a short one. Thursday, the CNN debate, Joe Biden, President Trump. If you're not in Washtenaw County, you're going to miss out because you can come to our Lincoln Day dinner. Go to WashtenaWrepublicans.org and watch the debate with us, where we'll have a huge party at a banquet hall and be a lot of fun and raise money for your county GOP. Otherwise, it could be a very dull affair. And here's an interesting article from some outlet about how to watch it, where they say you can watch it on CNN. Ew. There will be no audience. In fact, where is it? Yeah, here we go. There will be no audience, no help from aides, no notes, and no interrupting. To enforce the no interruptions rule, the microphone will be muted while the other is speaking. The moderators will use all the tools at their disposal to enforce timing and ensure civilized discussion. Sounds miserable. The only items available will be a paper, pen, and bottle. The podium each man stands will be determined by a coin flip. There will be no other props, such as earpieces. Oh, really? Is that what an earpiece is? A prop? News Nation? Was that earpiece in Joe Biden's ear only a prop? Because that was only a prop, guys. Don't worry. There will be no aides giving Joe Biden his answers in case you had any doubts. They will not be allowed to take calls on aides during the commercial break. So there will be commercial breaks, in case you were wondering about that. I'm thinking about trying to live stream this debate with our county GOP and Rescue Michigan on Thursday. I can't promise it, but if it can happen, it will happen. We shall see. Don Kafila says apparently Adam keeps his stuff up late too. Yep, sorry guys. Thank you guys for joining us, by the way. Good as always to see you. RFK not on the debate because they screwed him over, basically. Saying he's not on the ballot yet in 270 states. And there's some other thing I noticed in this article that I found a bit strange. The content. What could they debate? Topics is the problems at the border. The problems at the border, guys. See, this totally not framing this issue for Joe Biden at all. The problems at the border. Last I checked, the problems at the border led to problems everywhere in this country, even in Michigan, even in Colorado. Those problems at the border might be problems everywhere. And Trump's felony conviction will be highlighted. I'm sure it will. Let's see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how the debate goes. I think the big story is going to be Trump's VP pick. That sounds like that's going to be the big story. I don't know. What do you guys think? What's your predictions for the debate? Anyone got anything?
I don't have anything.
No?
We'll just see what happens.
I think it'll be underwhelming.
Yeah. I feel like my expectations for Trump are very, very, very high. And my expectations for Biden are very, very, very low, which is not good because that means I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I think Biden's likely to overperform. I hope he overperforms, because my biggest concern is that Gretchen Whitmer becomes the nominee.
I saw I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't think so, but we shall see. I saw an email that reportedly was from the state GOP, which I was like, no way, this can't be from the state party. And it wasn't actually sent from their website because they were using MailChimp and they didn't know how to authenticate their web domain. But it was so weird because it actually said, and I quote, this is what they said, this is official MIGOP Insiders Update. Could be spoofed because it wasn't actually sent from their website because of stupidity, but they quoted somebody saying the media wants to lower Joe Biden's debate performance bar so low he gets a participation trophy simply for sitting upright 90 minutes. But make no doubt about it, Biden will be highly prepared and alert on debate night, relying on the same perfectly calibrated dosage used to deliver his widely praised 2024 State of the Union address or his 2012 thrashing of Paul Ryan at the VP debate. Stephen Chung is the guy they're quoting. What? I hope this is a fake email, frankly, because his widely praised 2024 State of the Union address. Do you guys remember any praising of that address?
Nope.
I think someone's trying to compensate and set expectations way too high, but we shall see. We shall see what Thursday's debate will be. Unfortunately, unless I can work it out with this with this local party, there will not be a live stream, but we will try. We'll try to make it happen. Try to keep it interesting, because otherwise, it sounds like it will be a dreary event. But oh well. I don't think. I mean, I can see Trump not being allowed to. I mean, they you notice how they spin this. Trump interrupted Biden at the last debates. I remember Biden interrupting Trump just as much, if not more. I think Trump could be fine without any interruptions. I think he could smack Biden like crazy every time he gets the equal, if they get equal time, which I think they have to. With no interruptions, how can they not give him equal time? We'll see. I think it'll be good. All right, guys, we will have to call it a stream and do more during the week, because there are plenty of stories we didn't talk about. Bad World War III stuff going on, even more, if you can believe that. One more short thing. Trump is apparently saying no taxes on tips. As an old Ron Pauler, I am disappointed he didn't credit Ron Paul for that, because Shane is nodding his head. He remembers Ron Paul. We used to hand out cards, our business cards at restaurants, saying Ron Paul, no tax on tips act. Which if Trump had said, this is Ron Paul's a campaign idea, it was a great idea, I'm taking it, libertarians would love that. They would love that. But no, he wouldn't do that. He took that idea for himself. Didn't give credit. Bad Trump. Oh well. All right, everything else later this week. We have to do more because it's been a big topic. But thank you guys all for tuning in. Shane, Scott, thank you guys for coming on. This has been an awesome stream. A great discussion. Time will tell. Time will tell. Did I jump the shark? Is Gateway Pundit right? Is Neil Friske being railroaded? We will know sooner or later. We will see. We will see, guys. All right. That will do it for us for tonight. Until next time, thank you guys, as always, for all you do for liberty. Until then, peace.